DG Lovelies. This is Nisha M, your geek mom, also known as Nisha T. Mulchan, coming to you from Diversely Geek Discusses, and we are back with another fantabulous episode of Doctor Who in Review. And keeping with our month-long conversation on powerful characters, female or non-heteronormative characters in the Whoniverse, we are going to be focusing on positive representation of persons of color or characters who we have felt have been tremendously valuable in the Whoniverse and in terms of the Doctor's progress and growth. And we are focusing on 3 of those amazing characters today. And one is going to be Martha Jones, or Dr. Martha Jones. The other is going to be Bill. Yes. And thirdly, we're going to bring in a little conversation on Yaz from season 11. So I want to welcome our guests today. And I know that all of them are clamoring to really give us their perspective on the breadth and the wealth of female characters and how strong they are in the Whoniverse. And today we're going to be talking with my co-host from Man Bites Media. It's Louis Lacow.
Yeah, and I'm going to be representing Martha Jones, Dr. Martha Jones, the amazing woman herself that is so underappreciated in this series and is one of my favorite characters of all time in the series, not only in the series, but in general in TV history. So, yes, I'm excited.
Wow, now that's a big statement, Louis. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So hold on to that, because I think we're gonna tag on to it. And we have the wonderful Molly B. Marcus.
Hello. I'm going to be representing Ms. Bill Potts today. I can't wait to dig into her stuff as well.
Yes. And our first time attendee, Greg
Plantamura. Yes, and very glad to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. The first time I'm here, I'm not really familiar with the how the thing runs, so I will just chirp in where I feel like could be helpful.
That's pretty much how it runs. I think they'll agree with me. So, but you already had a wonderful points of view, and you have just come back from a panel at
we did the Clearwater Comic Con held at the library in Clearwater, Florida. And we had a panel on the female image in Doctor Who, and talked about a lot of the standout women throughout the history of Doctor Who.
Can I ask you, how was the reception to the panel?
It was a small group that came in there, but the people that we had there were very, seemed like they were very involved and very attentive to it. And yeah, it was me and 2 other ladies who were on the panel, and it was good. I think everybody was really into it.
Did you feel like you had a good fan interaction? And I'm curious for a reason.
Good fan interaction. Yeah, there were some good thoughtful points that were brought up in there. One thing that was mentioned, for instance, was that you can see throughout the history of the show that they definitely made efforts to try to make the female characters, the companions, more powerful, more intelligent, more. And however, you can see where every time they tried to take a step forward there, a lot of times it really didn't work out, and they had to keep working at it over the years. Like Sarah Jane was first introduced as a very real go-getter investigative reporter. Once she started traveling with the Doctor, she kind of gave up that career, and kind of became more of more of the traditional tag along to the Doctor, but still, a very, very bold and assertive character. And then, of course, we had Leela, who was this jungle girl who was really breaking the stereotype of what the companions could be like.
Leela,
and she was very, very bold and aggressive. But then, because she was didn't have the experience and the education like the Doctor had, she ended up kind of being very kind of childlike and sort of following along behind the Doctor. when she wasn't stabbing people and stuff. But yeah. So, and even with Romana, and we saw it just throughout, it's been a very slow process, I think, that they've been trying to give more empowerment to the female characters.
I mean, Romana should have been empowered. It was implied in the character in the entire story, for goodness sakes. But amazing conversation. This is something that I think we have slated for a few shows in the future. So I'm very happy to have you on board, that you've already had the experience of that type of interaction with the fans.
I just want to jump in and say the Romana. I have to say this. Romana's character, I think, was underwritten in a way that it was very subtle. The kind of movements and the challenges to the show. I honestly think that Romana's character was a phenomenal character because she was able to kind of, I would say, bridge the gap between the 60s and 80s type of mentality. And it kind of transcends past it's not going to be the female just doing something else and just a companion anymore. The female is empowered in this, but she does it in a subtle way. So sorry, I just wanted to jump in and say that.
No, and it's perfect. I'm very happy to have this conversation as we lead in, because the point I was making about Romana is she's a Time Lord. There's no gender specified to her other than they cast her in the female body. And
they did it in a way that didn't piss off the fandom, and it didn't piss off the studio executives, because the way that she played her character was so well done, and it was so subtle that people didn't catch on that she was this, badass. I mean, she really was. For not only being a super intellectual woman, she was very empowering to a generation, and she did it in a way that just like, haha, yeah, that's right, that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on.
I think that has a lot to do with Lala Ward and her ability to maintain this extremely blasé, very sometimes even blunted affect, but that actually carried the power, the power behind it. So with that being our lead-in, Molly, hi, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm just hanging out here.
We went straight in, didn't we? Oh my God.
We did.
So I think that what we want to do is talk a little bit today about characterization, personality. We want to understand representation and personality together.
Sure.
So let's see if I can explain that to everyone. I think all of you understand, because we did have our conversation before.
Yeah.
Basically, in the Whoniverse, the entirety of our understanding of a character is up to us, because they present us a character, they script them, and then it's up to us to see how we interpret the character. Correct?
Correct.
Suffice to say, I mean, you feel pretty much that that's how it has worked. At least that's the way I felt it's always worked.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I think that I'd like to, looking at the three characters that we're talking about today, do you feel that there was, that Martha, Bill, and Yaz, who I can speak for, or Greg can, do you feel like there was more positive representation of the breadth and the depth of this character's skill, ability, talent, and value, versus maybe they washed over and did not represent those characters appropriately? So let's just go ahead and go with Bill, Molly, and then yes, you can talk, and then Greg and I can chat in there.
Sure. So I think out of those three, before I dive into Bill, I think Bill did, but the other two, I think, well, maybe not. But for me, Bill really, truly made waves among Whovians for several reasons. Not only was she a person of color, but she was also a lesbian with an eclectic style and a quirky sense of humor, all of which made her like starkly different from the more recent companions. Of course, we also had the LGBT representation in a really prominent role. And really, since her debut in season 10 of the pilot, her presence has been like a breath of fresh air, especially to me, who identifies, within the LGBTQ. And she is an interesting blend of other modern Who women, but she definitely had her own distinct qualities that made her a formidable companion. I identified with Bill and her empowerment because she was geeky with like an infinity for the universe and wonder and joy that she expressed when she was with the Doctor. It was really irresistibly genuine. She also was viewing the world from her own unique lens, questioning the 12th Doctor about, why the seats in the TARDIS aren't even closer to the console, and why is there gravity on the station? Bill is also working class. She's compassionate, who desires excitement, like Rose, but there's no romantic tension with the Doctor, which I thought was brilliant, because I got tired of that after a while. Bill and the Doctor's relationship is kind of similar to Donna and the 10th Doctor, although, it's kind of like two good friends who are enjoying traveling across time and space together. I think another example was in like Knock Knock. Bill's annoyed by the Doctor crashing her new pad and interrupting time with her roommates. She's also interrupted by the Doctor and the Pope, again in the Extremis, when she's on a date with Penny, which is like a major moment for a woman who struggles in the dating world. And I thought it was a really interesting viewpoint of that. The other part of empowerment with Bill for me was that she was clever, and she was resourceful and witty and emotionally intelligent and bold in her interactions. She actually asked the Doctor if he had killed anyone, called him out on his actions, made him accountable. But, Bill had no interest in playing the Doctor and takes the perils of the TARDIS, travel to heart. And then, unlike her predecessors, she spent a significant amount of time with the Doctor prior to traveling with him. She decided to take his class, developed a student-teacher relationship with him, which is different. And then, the 12th Doctor really, I think, stimulated and delighted Bill's curiosity and desire to learn. He challenged her, encouraged her to come up with her own conclusions, but he still showed a deep affection, and an affection I'm using loosely here as, it's different than love and adoration. Affection is, just different. And then Bill's—
Would you say like a granddaughter?
Kinda. It was really similar to like the first Doctor in that regard, right?
Yeah.
So Bill's journey, again, toward building confidence in herself and discovering the infinite, like reaches time travel in his story about her own graduation from the TARDIS to a powerful woman. I think Pearl Mackie herself had been electrifying on the screen, and there was no easy feat to opposite Capaldi, and she deserves really more than, the one that she had. It really was kind of sad when she went away. And so just to finalize, Bill impacts the characterization of modern Who companions, I think, for the future. There's a unique power in being the Doctor's friend and then working together with him to help make the universe a better place. So that's kind of what my thoughts on Bill were.
Perfect.
That's amazing.
That was amazing. Thank you. I actually, there was a reason why I wanted to start with Bill, because you'd think I'd want to start with Martha, right? So, bearing in mind everything you said, which was extremely relevant and true, would the Doctor, the 12th Doctor, have been capable, able? Would the Doctor 11th or the 12th Doctor have been prepared to deal with a character with the personality, the strength, the wit, the grace, and the skill and talent of someone like Bill if we had not already gone through the experience he had had with Martha or Sarah Romana? In the age that the Doctor is that we are introduced to Martha Jones, the Doctor is coming from oh, good Lord. And we're in the age of RTD, and RTD loves his romances. And I believe that he subjugates and objectifies, to some extent, the companions. And I was not a lover of that particular story arc whatsoever. And we know that definitely did not allow the personality and the character and the power of Martha to be represented appropriately. Now, that's my take on this. So All of you can speak to it, but go ahead and let Lewis start on that, and then we can, see if we want to counter or agree.
Thank you, guys. So basically, Martha Jones, I strongly think that she is probably one of the most influential companions, and it's because the fact that she was one of the first to not take the slack of the Doctor and kind of take the BS that the Doctor was putting down. Martha, from the moment that is picked up on the spaceship, is not only questioning everything, but understanding everything that is going on. She is that incredible woman that was the first to rush in and during the Sontaran invasion and save people, because that's what she wanted to do. She didn't care what was going on outside. She understood what was going on, and she had the questions in the back of her head. But what did she do? She immediately jumped to help people, because that's who she is. She is the epitome of what the Doctor, quote unquote Doctor, is supposed to be. And she personified that in a companion. And I think that's where Tennant saw Martha as an equal. Martha wasn't anybody below him or somebody that he needed to teach the ways or anything like that. And I think from the moment that she gets picked up to the very end, where she walks away from the Doctor and says, I'm done with this. It's going to ruin my life if I continue anymore, because you're a life consumer and you will eat up everybody that runs your path. And she's one of the first to realize that nobody's the same once they leave the Doctor. And that's incredible, I think. And that's extremely powerful, the fact that she walked away from the Doctor. She is the Sarah Connor of the Doctor Who universe, because she is not just an amazing woman that is a badass, but she is an intellectual that is able to give reason and doubt to the Doctor and question everything that he states at that time. And it's incredible that they're able to put this actress on the screen and portray this character, because I think she's up there in my book as Sarah Connor, as one of the most incredible female actresses and characters out there because of that, because she's on par. She has no diminishing reasoning whatsoever to doubt her in any way or form. From the beginning that you pick her up, you notice that she is acting like a Doctor, like a savior. And that never gets dropped. And I think that's really incredible, honestly, and commendable.
So where do you think that you see, because the story of Martha actually is
it's sad.
It is, but now let me look at something. Let's look at the very first episode where we see her with the Judoon, and then you're going to see her journey all the way past Doomsday. Now, Doomsday, I think we should all have a little bit of a discussion on that, because it's when Dr. Martha Jones walks the earth.
Yes,
it's
Utopia, and that whole series is incredible. I personally, my favorite episodes is the Utopia, the sounds with the master and everything. That is incredible series of 3 episodes that they did, and there's so much in that right there, and it's done in a way that is subtle. Like Martha Jones, her character is so subtle about the life lessons that she brings out. Every episode had a life lesson in it, and you didn't even realize it. I mean, this was heavy-handed life lessons in each episode, and they were there, but you didn't tell until watching it again, and you're like, oh my God, I got this from this episode. Or having a conversation like Nisha and I have had a million times after watching an episode, and the first thing that you think of is like, oh my God, how much did I learn from watching Martha Jones's one season of being a companion on a little bit more than one season, but almost entirely just one season on the TARDIS. And it's incredible that every episode had that. I really think that's definitely a feat.
I always really loved that scene from The Family of Blood where Joan Redfern doesn't believe that Martha could be a med student, could be studying to be a doctor. And she's like, well, somebody like you, and she's especially because she's implying because she's black, so she can't do that. And then Martha responds by rapidly rattling off the names of all of the bones in the hand and showing how intelligent and educated she is.
And she does the same thing with Shakespeare. She holds her own and completely seduces Shakespeare. That was just brilliant.
That was amazing and creepy, but it was good.
Oh yeah, but Expelliarmus. Sorry, I just no.
No, I mean,
right.
All right.
She used Harry Potter.
I mean, that does show she's powerful. I do want to bring back a point that I think Molly and I have spoken about. Molly, you said something about Martha coming in as a character who had to compete with the Ghost of Rose.
Yeah.
And the fact that you and I, had spoken about this. So please, this is going to be a big word, and it's not because okay. Sometimes we're going to say things on here, and I want the audience to understand that it's okay to use certain terminologies as long as we explain why it's being used, okay? So that's my little disclaimer. So to a certain extent, the character of Martha and Mickey were both subjugated. Their power was compartmentalized and tied up into a beautiful little bow and handed to the doctor to be batted about like a toy.
Yes.
And I hope that visual made sense to everyone.
Do you mean throughout their time on the series, or just at the end of their time on the series?
So I think that we bring Martha in with her power, because from the very first episode, he's so impressed with her when they're in on the moon that she has the scientific wherewithal to be able to say, yeah, we can open those windows, yeah, we can do this because scientifically speaking, it's okay to do this. And you may be an alien or not, but I'm telling you it's okay to do this. And he's like, wow, she can stand on her own. She can state scientific fact and she can save everyone here because she has that power and that balance within herself, and also the skill and the talent. So we see her from the very beginning with that level of ability, and by the third episode, the writers have decided that they're going to compartmentalize that skill and that talent. So she has it, but yet she runs around acting as if she doesn't have it. And the Shakespeare episode actually happens to be that, except luckily enough, I feel like she's kind of steps out of that during the episode when she's like, okay, I've had enough.
I think that's the powerful thing about her, though, is that she steps out of the shadow during the Shakespeare episode, when before most of the companions kind of jump back into the shadow of the Doctor when they're being challenged. Up until this point, even with Rose, she talked a big game and all that stuff, but whenever she encountered something, she ran back to the Doctor. Martha didn't. So until Martha really, like, she's the first one to stand up and say, no, Doctor, hold my beer. I got this. I got this. I could defend myself. Nobody got to talk for me. And I think that is incredible. And especially for that time period. And yes, we all understand that during that time period, we have to suspend belief a little bit in that episode, because she would have been accosted and the behaviors would have been completely different for that time period. And we understand that. But this episode,
because
in a subtle way, which
she very rightfully, expounds on her fear of being carted off into slavery. In the Shakespearean Code, because that was something that was extremely time relevant. Yep. And this Doctor, the 10th Doctor, would have known that. And he would not simply have made the Doctor would not have made a flippant response to that. And it irked me that he did not validate her concern. because which was a true concern and it should have been validated. So, again, egregious writing.
There's egregious writing and there's sci-fi writing, which we have to understand that when they're trying to write for a point, there's a lot that you have to be able to put on the back burner and say, okay, guys, we can't tackle all this right now. We can't. We're trying to progress the story, and you have to suspend belief a little bit, just like you have the suspense belief of the TARDIS translating everything into English. It's the same type of concept, I think, for the time period. How do we know there's not some gadget that the Time Lords have that kind of hide the companions in such a way? Maybe the chameleon circuit does something to Martha so they can't,
I don't think so, though.
I don't think so either. And if so, they should have said it.
I know.
It's an important enough point that I think it needed to have been addressed.
Like for example, in the episode with Rosa Parks in the latest season, I was scared for him. I thought, oh my God, it's the 1950s. What's going to happen? It's the same thing. Martha had a valid concern. Bill had a valid concern. Mm-hmm. They bring it up, but they only take it so far.
Well, I mean, in that same aspect, then you should be worried in the Daleks in Manhattan too.
But you are, and it actually is brought up in the Daleks in Manhattan. It's actually it's a well fleshed out story.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, okay, Shakespearean Code, it's a little bit different because, okay, most of the time, where are they? They're in the theater. They're not walking around the streets of England in anywhere form.
True statement.
They're mostly inside the auditorium of the actual theater itself, or behind the scenes and all that stuff, or in the little cabin that's out close by to the theater. So technically, they don't have to tackle that issue because there's a way around it. Because God knows what type of people Shakespeare brought into the theater type of thing. That's the mentality that the authorities might have had. And that's where I'm saying that you could suspend belief a little bit in that episode and give it a break a little bit in that sense.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And I think it was just for serving the plot. They didn't want to distract from the plot too much in the Shakespeare Code by getting into race relations and stuff there. Although it would have been interesting.
It would have but they've done it. They did it in Daleks and Manhattan, so they kind of tackle that issue later on in this season. And this one was already heavy-handed because it was Martha standing up and coming out of the shadow of the Doctor for the first time. Because if you've noticed the previous 3 episodes, Gridlock, she was kind of sidekick. The Smith and Jones, it was kind of a sidekick role where, yeah, she was very smart and intellectual, but Shakespeare Code was amazing. And it just kind of took her to the next level and made her a well-rounded character.
I kind of feel like Freema herself just took a big breath and decided to walk into the writing room and say, hey, listen. I think it's time for us to go in a different direction with my character because I am a lot stronger, a lot more intelligent, wise, and much more centered than you allowed me to be. And I would not have been the person who completely wallows in unrequited love. It's not something I would have done. And I just in my brain, that's what I feel like.
I could totally see her walking in the writer's room and saying, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm going to do this and this and this. So you better write that in. Goodbye. And walk out.
Let's move ahead because we're still on Martha. And of course, a lot of the focus today was going to be Martha and of course, Bill. I want to hear your take on bringing Martha in as such a strong foothold in the Doomsday trilogy, basically, and bringing her full around to where now she has such a strong leadership role.
It's because she transcended Doctor Who. She wasn't just in Doctor Who anymore. She was already at Torchwood, if I'm not mistaken, at this point, and she has taken on that role of leadership. And because of episodes like the Shakespearean Code, like Daleks in Manhattan, and so many other ones, it's that leadership role was already there. This is the character that she had. It wasn't because the interaction of the Doctor, and the Doctor realized that, oh, look, this is not, Martha is not who she is because of me. This is who she is. So I could trust her to be on a mission on her own. I can't imagine the Doctor putting that kind of trust in, say, Rose as a character to walk the earth and make this happen for a whole year, not just 5 minutes, which is the attention span of most people. And Martha, she took her time. 1 year traveling and walking the earth to spread the message of the Doctor and spread the love and understanding of who not only he is, but who the human race is. That's incredible. She was a representative. She wasn't just a leader. She was a representative, an ideology of representing herself and the Doctor. And that's incredible. That's something straight out of the Bible for crying out loud. I mean, it's apostatizing across the earth for not a person, but an ideology for hope. And that in itself is so amazing. And the fact that she did it herself. This wasn't something that she was put to do or tasked to do technically. She did it herself. She came up with the plot. She came up with the devices that she needed to do this. All the Doctor said was give her the inspiration to do it. But he didn't tell her what to do. She did that all herself because she is amazing and beautiful person and so intellectual that she was able to handle anything that's thrown at her.
Yes, well said.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. You know how I am. You know, I get lost in the thoughts and I'm thinking about it and I'm actually reading as we discuss because I like to go ahead and refresh my brain on the relevancy of your points because usually what you guys say really help me to pull my own thoughts together and my imaginings. I was writing to myself that the being and the person, the character and the personality of Martha was inherent to her psyche. It was inherent to her being, just like what you were saying. There was no taking that out of her, which is why I think I was so supremely frustrated that the writing compartmentalized and subjugated her because it was not something that could and should have happened.
Correct.
And especially at the hands or in a spatial context to the Doctor, because it's not who the Doctor was. At least shouldn't have been at this point in the Doctor's progress. So it didn't float for me. Didn't make sense for me. And now we're gonna move ahead, and like Molly rightfully says, we do then have the progression of the characters because then we have Donna, and now we move in, and then we have Clara. You know, we have Amy, and then we have Clara, such a strong character, and now we have Bill. And as the Doctor has progressed and grown, the Doctor has learned. At least this is what I like to believe, that's the philosophy, is that experience teaches the Doctor, hopefully, what not to do and whom not to be. So by the time we've reached the 12th Doctor, I feel that very strongly, and I feel like Capaldi completely represents an understanding that I need to step back, I need to apply my own brakes, because with Clara, he did not. The Doctor did not. But with Bill, it was like, I need to now. So do you want to speak a little more to that, Molly or Greg? How do you feel about that? Now we're talking about the transition from a character like Martha to Bill.
I think it's also part of the evolution of the production of the show, that the writers have gotten more sophisticated, slowly over the years. Like I said before, you had characters back during the third Doctor. They brought in a unit scientist, Liz Shaw, who was supposed to be very intellectual and very smart, and like, more of the Doctor's equal intellectually, but the character just didn't really, catch on, and she didn't last for very long, and she just ended up being put back in that box of being the standard companion there who has to be rescued. So I don't know how much of it has to do with the writers or maybe with the actors giving input, but it's been an evolution over time, and I'm glad that we've gotten to the point, like with Bill. I don't see Bill as being put into any kind of box. Like with Martha, I kind of feel like, now we have to have some kind of a character who's going to be a counter to Rose, and we can promote this as being, the black companion or something like that. And whereas with Bill, I don't really see Bill as being, put into any kind of box. It's like, she is the gay companion or plays the female role or whatever. She's just who she is. She's a person. She's Bill, and I think that's cool that they've gotten to that point. And with the current companions they have on the show as well, that they're just people. You don't have to worry about, how do we categorize them?
Yeah. Just to piggyback off that, Greg, we go from someone like Clara to someone like Bill. And to me, it was like night and day. And in a way, I don't know if that was like a precursor to get us used to Jodie and the transition to her and what she calls her friends now, rather than her companions, which again is also a change. But I still feel like Martha, I feel that they're still disservicing and subjugating Yaz. And it still bothers me tremendously that it seems to me like they still haven't learned, because Yaz could have been so much more of a stronger presence. And I really feel like she got kind of the short end of the stick this season. So I'm really hoping that they do more with her. I kind of saw sort of with Jodie that she was trying to do more for Yaz, but it's still, I think, in the writing, and I think we've talked about this ad nauseum, that, the writing itself was failing some of these characters. And I think with Bill, I think you're right, Greg. I think we see a person, just like the Doctor is a being. And I want to see, and I agree, I want to see Yaz's skills. I want to see what she knows. I don't want her just being just some tag along, because she's not. She's an incredible person. So I really want to see that. So thank you.
Wow, that was beautiful.
I think a lot of it's because the way that they wrote her character, unfortunately, it suffered a lot. They don't have her as that confrontational type of person, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I wish we would have seen a little bit of that empowerment, and we didn't with Yaz. And I agree 100%. I really was dying to see that in Yaz, and her to take charge in a situation and go pull out that Martha Jones that we know that she has in her. At least the way that the character is portrayed and as a backstory, we know she has the potential. We just have to realize that potential. And I think that's what they're going to tackle in this next season, hopefully.
I feel like that they spent a good amount of the personality of the show itself, because there's so much newness to the show with the showrunner, the visual effects, the stylations, the new companions, the new TARDIS, with so much being new, that there was only so much they could do in this one season. And the fact that it is a short season from now on does not help any. If we're looking back at time immemorial where we could have 14 to 16 episodes, I believe we would have had more time to be able to fully unearth the breadth of this character. I don't feel that it was appropriate to have placed her and relegate her to being lesser than. I don't think that they meant to do that, and I don't truly think that they characterized her as a lesser than character. I just don't feel like they wrote her as well as they needed to. But when they did write her, Yaz is very fully represented as a very strong, personable, empathetic, caring, nurturing, intuitive, scientifically wise character. Yes. And at par with the Doctor herself, because there's many moments at which Yaz just completely tunes in. And I will go back to the segue that Greg had spoken about Liz Shaw. Liz, to me, is one of the reasons I watched Doctor Who in the first place. As well, Lewis and Molly. When I first started watching with Pertwee, one of the reasons that I continued watching is because Liz was this beautifully well-rounded, completely self-contained scientific mind.
Yeah,
and it's fine, but it's not something, Molly, you and I at that age were used to seeing. And the fact
I loved it.
They fully gave us this beautifully balanced character who was a perfect example and a representation of who we could be. And it didn't matter that she was a Caucasian character. It didn't matter to me. She was just this beautiful character representation of who I could be. And I knew that, and I felt that. And I think that in this, that they're using something similar as creative license when it comes to Yaz. They're giving us a lead up, and I hope I'm correct on this, that Yaz can be the same type of represented character for a newer generation. I'm just waiting for it to happen. Is that?
Yeah,
you see where I'm going?
Okay, so I had a lot to say about Yaz's character when I first watched the series, as you all know. But after watching the series again, because obviously Nisha and Joe had a lot to say to me about Yaz's character and why they disagreed with me, I was like, okay, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm completely delusional and I completely missed a whole section of the show. And guess what, guys? I did. And you know what that is? It's because the TARDIS is way too crowded this season, and there's so many different things going on that, unfortunately, our minds focus in on one thing. Nisha represents... She enjoyed Yaz's character because she kind of identified with it. So she struck with that character. And after rewatching it, let me tell you, you see the subtleties in her acting. And you see the subtle points that were brought up previously by Nisha and Joe, because there is a very strong character in there. It's just it wasn't given the opportunity to flourish.
That's exactly right.
And it's for everybody out there that is strongly disagreeing with this comment, please go back, do yourself a service, and rewatch the season. Focus in on Yaz's character, and you'll realize what we're saying.
Also understand from a filmmaking point of view. Now take a perspective and look at Martha, Bill, and Yaz in the same way. Understand that not all of film and cinematography and television segmental writing focuses on the words and on the character actions. It is very possible to have an overlying story arc that's actually very subtle in the quiet movement, in the facial expression, in the choices and decision making of the characters. And I feel that with a character like Martha, for instance, and in the beginnings of even with Bill, we see so much representation of who they are in their facial characterizations, in the strength of their body and their tone of action and the voice. If that, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like we got that wealth in Yaz's character, and let me tell you why. So everyone knows, person of color, Asian, female, Indian background. A character like Yaz was coming from a Western Pakistani culture, who was already in a family structure where she was not as thought as highly of as she probably should have been. And we see that with her sister Sonia. I don't believe that Yaz had come into her own understanding of her own ability and her own value. And therefore, for her to come out guns blazing, even though she's a police officer in training, for her to come out guns blazing would not have, I don't think, been true to the character and the culture of that time. And when we do see her family history and get a little bit of a taste of it in the arachnids, we get an understanding, okay, so there's something that Yaz is walking away from here. She has a strong nanny. We learned that in Demons of Punjab. She has a very strong mother because the mother's the breadwinner. And she has all of that talent wrapped into her, but yet she still hasn't accepted that. She still hasn't come into her understanding of her own value. I feel that when she takes that step into the TARDIS is the first time we're fully realizing, and she's realizing, gosh, I'm the master of my own journey. I'm the master of my own destiny, and I can write my own, success. So I saw that from my personal understanding of our culture and how hard it is sometimes to be able to fully realize who we are. So I know that was a big soliloquy, but does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the things that I love about Doctor Who and about science fiction in general, is that you can write these stories that will help people to understand a bit more and empathize with other groups, other social groups and stuff. And with hands down, my favorite episodes of the most recent season have been the historical stories. The one with the India-Pakistan partition and the one with Rosa Parks. Those were just fantastic. And I thought the villains were kind of weak in those stories, but the actual tension came from the social change aspect that was going on.
Absolutely, I would 100% agree. And Nisha, I thought that was really well said. Even though I'm not necessarily, a person of color, I'm not, I'm not that. I mean, even though I'm all kinds of different mud of things, but by my outward appearance, I am not. But they struggle so much with this, and I think the three of us talked a lot about the whole political correctness too.
Yes.
Of things in this very last season. But I think, getting back on track with Yaz and empowerment issues, we do see her get a bit more emboldened by the end of the season, but it's still not quite enough. Like, she really starts to, especially the last couple of episodes, we see her question, we see her step up, we see her do a lot of different things, but it's still, as we've been saying, hadn't been fleshed out. And perhaps with more episodes it might have been. There might be something to that. So I think there's more growth for Yaz. I don't think she's done yet. I don't necessarily think she'll follow the same fate as Martha per se. I really hope not. But again, that will just depend on the showrunners and the writers.
Listen, there better not be a romance on that TARDIS, unless it's with each of them with someone else. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I was really hoping Bill was still going to be there, because I thought that would have been amazing.
Oh gosh, I so hope that happens. Don't forget, Clara is still out there with me.
That's true. That's
racing around the galaxy. So who knows, right?
In the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Oh my God, I just would love it so much.
I love the Douglas Adams reference.
I know.
Oh my God.
When I saw that episode, everybody was like all teary-eyed, and I was like, oh my God, yes! I fangirled out. I was like, oh yes, it's the
I did the
restaurant.
Same. I totally did the same.
Yeah, I do hope that we will see them again, Bill and the character known as Me.
And come on, let's be real. The Doctor's daughter too, which that was
Amy,
phenomenal.
Yes.
No,
I want to see Jenny again.
Jenny. That's
Jenny.
Right,
Oh,
I'm gonna refrain from saying anything about Jenny, because if you can't say anything nice, then don't say anything else.
Well, we didn't have that much time to really explore the whole point of a character like Jenny, but I also know that they did try, but it made no sense. And Jenny was going to have her own standalone in Big Finish. Now, what I really think would be beautiful and a very wise move on the part of the Doctor Who BBC universe, Dark Horse, for instance, is to be able to give standalone comics story arcs that will allow us to see better understanding of Bill's journey before she is so rudely interrupted with a big hole in her chest. Sorry. That's just pure.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, oh my God. I'm sorry. Did everyone understand my passion on that one?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was subtle, very subtle.
Very subtle. I said rudely interrupted. I mean, it would be pretty wonderful to be able to use the comic book medium and the Big Finish medium to be able to give us more of the background of these characters. That is the point of Big Finish. And I think the Big Finish does a beautiful job at doing all of that and giving us those opportunities to learn more. For instance, without them, I don't think that we would have been able to enjoy Sarah Jane as much as we did.
Very true.
So, I really think that there's an opportunity because there's 4 of us and we all want to know more about that character. You know how many out there want to know more about Martha, more about her journey. I want to know more about Martha's journey once she becomes the head of unit. Once she becomes this, the woman who walks the earth. I mean, I want to know more about that journey.
I want to see that year that she went on the journey, what she did.
Gosh, yes.
That would be amazing.
Because
Totally.
she was being hunted down. So I would love to hear the stories where she encounters and how she comes to grips with everything that she needs to do.
Really?
It'd be fascinating, I think.
I think it would be fascinating, and to be able to get a beautiful, comprehensive and a complex understanding of the machinations of UNIT. Because, with UNIT starting out way back in the Pertwee era, we don't often, I think, until we get Lethbridge, the daughter.
Stewart.
Lethbridge Stewart's daughter, until we get that with the Doctor Goes to War. We don't really understand some of the internal workings, I think. So I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah. And I would really recommend to any listeners out there who have not checked out the Big Finish audio adventures to definitely do so. Because at first I was hesitant because I thought, this isn't really in canon. But they have, some of them are kind of hit and miss, but they really give an opportunity for the characters to be explored a lot more than they did. And especially even some of the earlier Doctors who I thought did not get a lot of good scripts, and even like Colin Baker, I thought didn't get a lot of good scripts to work with, but he has done a great job on that. And the Eighth Doctor as well.
Yes, and the Eighth Doctor finally, Paul McGann is just brilliant in helping us to understand what those lost years were. There's so much there's so much. Okay.
The Paul McGann audio, they're amazing. They really are. You want to speak about turning a Doctor that only had one episode basically to make his presence known, and one mini episode, and then take Big Finish. How many episodes are there of Big Finish with McCann? I think they're closing in on at least 100 and something, right?
Technically, I think that the Paul McGann Doctor has more stories, more Big Finish stories than any other Doctor has stories, period.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. And they really are good.
That's
really
because
good.
he was able to work, because the writing staff at that point were extremely invested in and had a lot of the wealth of the history and the culture of Doctor Who to be able to write and past him. So it's no longer just, hey, this is what happened before you, this is what happened after you. So it makes it easier for us to be able to write who you really were. And for him, because he has say in that, because he truly understands his character better than anyone, I actually would love to see him come back. And with a couple of the companions that we've spoken about today, I can just imagine what a beautiful relating that would be. So
Paul McGann?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say that video episode when they brought him back for, what was it, Night of the Doctor?
For the 50th,
when I saw that, I just freaked out. And I don't normally squee, but man, I squeed like a girl when he showed up on there. Oh my gosh, I never thought we'd see him again.
I know. I want to see him again. I do.
And his presence was phenomenal for that short little film. Oh, it was so great. It made so much sense.
Yeah.
It made sense, but it also opened up the world of inquiry. So as a Whovian, you're like, oh, okay, what is this? Who are they?
Mhm.
Why is this happening? I mean, we know, but the newer Whovians would probably not have known. And so
Mm.
I love that beautiful marrying, of the old and the new Who in that one short video. So it is time for us to wrap, and I know we could go on forever on these conversations because it's been really good. Let's just get some final thoughts on the characters we're speaking about today, and how well do you think the BBC, America, and the writing and the showrunners are doing in being able to better represent characters like a Martha Jones, a Bill Potts, and a Yaz in the Whoniverse as valuable, and extremely necessary because of generational, social, and cultural changes. So let's whoever who would like to start, Molly, Lewis.
Sure. I'll start. That's fine. I think that we got a real treat with Bill. I think that we really saw a different side and aspect to the Doctor in regards to Bill because of their relationship. And it was just so different. And it was more, not that others haven't necessarily been equal, but they really were. She took him to task, she held him accountable. And so I think they tried, and we saw this with Bill. I think that it's taken a few steps backwards, though, in the new series.
Okay, Lewis or Greg?
Yeah, I'll just say that I've always appreciated over the years of watching Doctor Who and British TV, one of the things that drew me to it was that they always seem to be ahead of the curve compared to the United States with regard to the racial diversity and LGBT representation that they have on the show. You saw interracial couples and stuff like that on Doctor Who long before that was really popular or acceptable in U.S. shows. So I'm glad that they keep moving in that direction.
Awesome. Yeah. I honestly think that with the progression that started with Martha in the modern Who and then continued on with Bill, and now we're seeing it with Yaz, I see the progression of the characters and these very strong, prominent females. And finally, women are getting proper representation in Doctor Who and are actually being who they are, which are amazing, amazing people. And they're actually getting written equals or superior to the male counterpart characters, and I think that is phenomenal because that's going to add so much substance and so much stuff that's lacking in the Doctor Who universe. And the fact that they're able to kind of pull away all these hold bars that have been holding them back and holding these characters back have finally been lifted little by little, and we're still progressing, obviously, but we're starting to lift those barriers. And with that being lifted, that's going to open a lot of different things to add to not only role models for younger females, but also role models in general in life. And that's for anybody and everybody out there. This is proper representation means proper role models, which that's a very important thing. It's not giving false idealistic approaches to life. It's not giving false hopes to people. This is real hope that people can do this, even if you're from any walk of life. Sorry. So yeah, I think that BBC's continuing progression in this forum has been very important, and they've made the proper steps to continue to do this in the future.
Wow, okay. So we're getting a positive feedback, and we feel like there's progress and there's growth. Even though, of course, we have concerns about the showrunner that we have now, I still feel like there's opportunity sitting there for us to be able to look past what people consider to be predispositions for role assumptions, gender, class, and hierarchical social clusters. I believe that one of the most favorable outcomes of the Doctor Who sci-fi fantasy medium has been the fact that we have always had the opportunity to see characters who step outside or who exist outside of a non-heteronormative functional class or existence. I have always felt very strongly like having a character like Vastra or Strax or so many others like the Shadow Proclamation, so many others, that for us we have the tendency of applying role and class and race to these characters where they really shouldn't be, because the Whoniverse doesn't write them that way. They write them very fluid and open to interpretation. So we have always had the opportunity to be gifted very strong, non-heteronormative characters who are highly representative of intelligence and wisdom and strength and power. It was whether or not we as a generation were willing to accept that and to be able to see it and interpret it in a way that is just as fluid as it probably was originally intended to be. Of course, in the very earliest years, after Verity Lambert and then up until I would say the late 70s, there was a lot of issues with the showrunners not being able to follow through, but going back to some classic normative structures, which I think did a little bit of disservice in terms of being able to give us those gender and race fluid characters. But we've slowly been able to get back there. I do feel like the new Whovian world has given us those opportunities to really embrace characters who fall outside of any norm spectrum, which it's supposed to. This is sci-fi. They're not supposed to fall into our spectrum of anything. It's supposed to be fantasy. It's supposed to be open and subjective and giving us the possibilities of what can be out there. If we constantly apply our own speculative assumptions to everything, then I think we're losing out in the long run. I do feel that we have had a wonderful movement in terms of female characters, in terms of female characters of color, and that we're slightly getting there. I feel that season 11 gives me, as a person of color, an older Indian chick, a little bit of hope that it is possible that everyone might be ready to hear and participate in a dialogue of equity, but at the same time of fluidity. So really that is what I'm hoping for. And I feel that, that the Whoniverse has always been a place that has given us the options to have that type of fluidity and to have those dialogues. So I'm a Whovian. I'm going to stay a Whovian. I cannot wait to see what happens with Yaz and with Ryan, and I cannot wait to see what other alien forms they bring us who challenge our understanding of what's normative and what's fluid. So again, another soliloquy from me. Yay! Oh goodness. So thank you guys so much. I am so excited to have had everyone on the show tonight. And I could just spout out so many other characters who I think really help us to challenge those speculative norms. For instance, Greg was reminding me of Harriet Jones. I adore Harriet Jones. One day.
Yeah, and there's a whole discussion about what they did with her character as to, or whether she's a positive role model or not, but that's a good discussion for another time.
It is, but it falls right into what I'm saying, because she's she's in a female body, but she's androgynous in the long run. She's Harriet Jones. That's all that you need to know.
We know.
And it's all that matters. And she makes these choices based on what Harriet Jones believes is in the best for her country, her world, and existence, and she gets punished for it. So yes, you're right, Greg. It is a conversation I think that would be beautiful to continue having. I love it. So thank you so much for Greg. How do you say your last name? I keep saying it wrong.
Plantamura.
It really is Plantamura. I don't know why I keep saying it wrong.
That's how we say it anyway. I don't know what my ancestors said. That's of Italian origin, and my mother's side is Japanese.
Oh wow!
His mom is so beautiful. Oh, we had a great conversation at Hammelfest, I have to tell you. So I owe her something. She wanted something, a piece of artwork that we have. So please remind me to get that to you for her. And as always are the wonderful Molly B. Marcus and the Louis Lacal from Man Bites Media, my faithful companion.
Yay!
and co-host here on Doctor Who in Review. And we know that the conversation for our next show is actually going to be even stronger than this one. Believe it or not,
Absolutely.
it's going to be stronger. So we have to challenge the norm. Isn't that what we're here to do? To look at Doctor Who from a whole different point of view?
Absolutely.
So,
I've been challenging the norm since '98.
uh-huh. Yes, he challenges the norm every single day. Yes.
For the willing and not so.
For the willing and not so. That's the journey with the Doctor. That's all of what it is. The poor TARDIS.
Yeah.
We have to do. So one of the shows coming up is going to be the entire understanding of what we see the TARDIS's existence to be. I cannot wait to have that conversation. That's going to be brilliant.
Beautiful
Yeah.
ballet.
That's going to be
It's gonna be
brilliant. Okay. So let's go ahead and, hey, Greg, how can we find you? What projects are you working on right now?
Well, we're waiting to see if we're going to do another Hamilfest for next year for the Alexander Hamilton fans. But in the meantime, you can always keep in touch with me through the Fandom Gathers Here in Pinellas Facebook page. Fandom Gathers Here in Pinellas.
Okay. Wonderful. And Molly B?
Well, we can find me in many of our podcasts here. I also just have an Instagram mostly for my artwork. So that's Molly Bloom on Instagram, but it's still not quite ready for prime time as I'm still working on my illustrations, my book.
I know you have a writing project underway, so
Yes.
you'll catch us up when you're ready to. So
Yep, absolutely.
And Lewis?
Yes. So for Man Bites Media, you could basically just go straight onto our website, manbitesfilm.com. And every Wednesday, we drop a new episode of Man Bites Retro, which is an in-depth look on a character or film of fans' choice. And we have a conversation with them, just asking just a basic conversation just like this. And then on Fridays, we drop our Man Bites Film, which is our flagship show that it's three guys talking at a pub about movies, basically, for about an hour, and it's pretty entertaining, and a lot of people have really enjoyed the conversations that we have because we're characters amongst ourselves.
Yeah, they are. No, they're awesome. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, and we are with Diversely Geek, and as everyone knows, we are working collaboratively with Man Bites Media on quite a few projects, which I cannot wait. Oh my God, what we're going to be doing. It's unbelievable. But you can find us on Spreaker and all podcast mediums out there, in our regular weekly show, which is Diversely Geek Discusses, and then ... So there's so many amazing things that we discuss out there. It's and we've just recently launched our Geek Week in Review, which is just a blast.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. And then we have my bi-monthly My Geek Universe candid, open conversations and dialogues with fans across the spectrum of fandom, and just talking about their journey, just very personal journey about and how they can help others to be able to counter difficulties and challenges that they've had in their life. So those are amazing. I really highly recommend that you guys get on and listen to My Geek Universes.
They are fantastic, by the way, guys. You want to talk about a person that could break through anybody's wall? That is Nisha right there. And that's what they do.
Yep, we just did mine, so it's really fun.
Yes, we did. Molly's is up there. Yeah, I don't know. I just love people, so sometimes it's just the conversations we have just lead to places that are just sometimes dark, very emotional and very connective, and very blessed and happy to have the opportunity to do it. So you can find us on diverselygeek.org, which is our website. And as I said, in April, all of our social media outlets will be found on the website. So everything will be launching through the website. So please visit. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, to our podcast through Spreaker, and join any of our social media sites. But really, visit the website and get on from there, and you'll be on everything. So
Well, thank you so much, you guys, for creating Diversely Geek. It's a wonderful platform.
Thank you. We were so happy to be part of the HamoFest world, and you and I have some conversations to have about that. So it was a blast. It was such an amazing opportunity for us to be part of it. So, which is how we met the wonderful Greg. Woohoo!
And yeah, really appreciate your participation in that.
All right, my friends. So we're gonna say good night, good morning, adieu, a bientôt, in any language and any time of the day that you are finding us. Have a wonderful, amazing rest of your day and your week.
Yay.
Peace out.